Today we're talking about 1.3 New France. Warm up. What were the three main reasons for Spain to explore the New World? Gold, God, and glory. Number two, what was Columbus looking for when he left Spain? A shortcut to East Asia. Now there are three main rivals in Europe that we'll talk about in U.S. history, one being Spain, two being France, three being Great Britain. And a rival is a person or a thing competing with another for the same object. So in this case, what were they fighting for? Power in Europe. So notice that all three countries are about average-sized countries in Europe, and they are three neighboring countries, so they are located very near each other. So those three countries do not like each other, and through the first part of U.S. history, they are always fighting. So the French explorers are coming to the New World, and they're looking to find the Northwest Passage in 1524, but instead they land in Canada. Northwest Passage is an all-water passage across the Americas that basically connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, and the French are trying to find the shortcut to East Asia that Columbus was not able to find. So they set sail in January of 1524 with a fleet of 4 ships, and the primary goal was to find the Northwest Passage so they could get to China, so they could get to Far East Asia to find gold, silver, and spices. It lasted 6 months, and they could not find the Northwest Passage. Instead, they ended up going down the St. Lawrence River and settling around the Quebec area. So the French first explored the New World by traveling the St. Lawrence River and settling near present-day Quebec, Canada. You need to write down everything that is in purple on your notes. Quebec became the headquarters of New France. So Quebec is right along the St. Lawrence River. It's the first major city you get to today when you take the St. Lawrence River. The St. Lawrence River also connects to the Great Lakes. Robert de La Salle, he's a French fur trapper. He explored the Great Lakes. He explored and discovered the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico. So he claimed the Mississippi River and the territory that would later be called Louisiana for France. So he becomes famous for claiming the Mississippi Mississippi River for France. So here, this is a picture of the Mississippi River. So it is the largest river in the United States. And I want you to think of it as the major highway in the United States because at that time, ships were the fastest way of transportation. And if you notice, all these smaller rivers all connect into the Mississippi River. So think of the Mississippi River as like a major highway, and then these smaller rivers are, like smaller roads feeding into the major highway. So with owning the Mississippi River, New France now controls trade up and down all of those smaller rivers also. So at the bottom of the Mississippi River, where it leads out into the Gulf of Mexico, later becomes New Orleans. It's a port city that controls the mouth of the Mississippi River. This is later created, and it's going to allow France to control trade on the river. Later on, they're going to be able to make this like a toll road. They're going to charge ships to travel and use the Mississippi River for trade. Places like New Spain are going to have to pay a tax if they want to use this Mississippi River. So it's going to be a very valuable port city. New Orleans will be. And later on, the U.S. will attempt to buy it from France. So here's a location of where New France is. It's going to be in the yellow. You have New Spain in the orange, and then what later will become the British 13 colonies over on the east coast there. Notice that the French, they settle around the Great Lakes, down the Mississippi River area, and up into Canada. Okay, most of the people in New France, they are going to live up around the Great Lakes, the southeastern part of Canada, so it's really cold there. So farming's not a very good option. So now economics. Economics in New France is, we're going to talk about how New France made its money. So most of New France, think of Canada, around the Great Lakes area, had a short growing season because it's very cold. They also have a small population. So it made growing crops near impossible as far as selling it and making money off of it. Were not able to make cash crops. If you look at the picture there on the left, there's mountains, there's lots of trees, and there's lots of snow. Those are three bad things when it comes to trying to farm. When you farm, you want somewhere that has sunshine, somewhere that does not have a ton of trees, and somewhere that is somewhat flat. And so Canada does not it does not have good terrain or a climate to sell cash crops. So how can France make money? Okay, what they do have is they have animals, lots of animals, and because it's cold, they have animals that have thick fur. So they're going to trade with Native Americans. They're going to trade for animal fur for European items. So the French could sell the fur to Europeans, and in Europe, fur was considered to be a very valuable thing. So fur was valuable because the wealthy wore it. This is the queen that you see in all three pictures. She's wearing fur because it's a symbol of wealth. The wealthy people were the only ones that wore it. I got a question. What are some European items that Indians would find valuable? Okay, the first one that I say is a horse. That's something that New Spain or the Spanish brought over to the New World, and then later the French will bring some also. But Indians, before they had horses, they were somewhat limited on where they could hunt and how they fought. With horses, it was a game changer. They can now follow herds of buffalo. They can travel somewhat quickly, and they have a way to fight from horseback also. Also made them able to hunt much easier. It also would be weapons, rifles. Okay, these were things that they had in Europe that they did not have in the New World. So Indians thought horses and guns were very valuable. Another thing would be just a simple pot. Okay, something that would be found in every single kitchen in Europe that's not valuable in Europe, but you bring it to the New World, and an Indian would consider a pot to be very valuable. They can boil water, they can cook food. Another item is like a fork and a spoon. Okay, so that's something that an Indian probably did not have before. That they could trade these forks and spoons and pots with the French. The French would consider it very cheap, not valuable. Then trade it for animal fur, and then that fur they could turn around and take it back to Europe and sell it for lots of money. So that was one way that the French became very wealthy. Now the French, they do learn how to hunt, they do learn how to trap. And so all of the animal fur that they sell over in Europe, it did not all come from the Indians. A lot of it did, but the French are also able to learn to hunt, fish, and trap. But they become very good friends with the Indians and do a lot of trading because the Indians are also excited to get these European items also. So how it worked: Indians would collect fur by hunting or trapping. Indians traded the fur to the French. The French would send the fur to France, and then France sells the fur to Europeans. And like we said, only the wealthy in Europe wore the fur. It was a sign of wealth, and so France becomes very wealthy from this. So this is known as mercantilism, to where economic theory that trade generates wealth for the mother country. So in this case, France is making a lot of money because of them trading fur with the Indians in New France. So New France is making lots of money for France. So that is mercantilism. Religion. So the French settlers also converted the Native Americans to become Catholic. So just like the Spanish did by building missions, the French are going to do the same. Now the difference is the relationship with the Indians. We talked about how the Spanish a lot of times would turn the Indians to slaves and force them to look for gold. They would force them to become Catholic, to where the French, they were not so strict. Yes, they did. They wanted everyone living among them to be Catholic, but they never forced the Indians into slavery. If anything, they became friends because they traded with them. The government. So the government of the mother country, in this case France, determined the type of government that the colonists would have in the New World. So basically, France would try to control New France. The Spanish and the French kings were absolute monarchs, so they allowed very little self-government in the colonies. So a most important slide of the day here. Okay, the French explored the New World for the 3 F's. 1 being fur, 2 being fish, 3 being friends, and they became friends with the Indians. So fur, they explored the New World because they wanted the fur so they could sell it. Like I said, a lot of it came from the Indians, but they also hunted and trapped themselves, and that was the way they made their money. That's the way France became very wealthy. Fish, we didn't talk too much about the fish, but we did talk about how New France, the people settled there. They went down the St. Lawrence River. They settled there near the river near Quebec. They also settled around the Great Lakes region. They also settled down the Mississippi River. All 3 of those include water. Where there is water, there is fish. So they were able to fish, and survive off fish also. Okay, and then they became friends with the Indians by trading with them. So here's a map of New France. So notice we talked about New Spain yesterday being down in South America up into Mexico, and then possibly even into present-day Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of California. Okay, so it's all this region here. This is where New France is. It's going to take up a large part of the eastern part of Canada, around the Great Lakes area, down the Mississippi River. And then that's just going to leave this east coast over here as unclaimed, which eventually Great Britain will come and settle that.